Hi everyone, welcome back to my 20-year Film Fest series. I'm focusing on 14 movies to recommend for each of the last 20 years, starting with 1995. And so I'd like to continue on with 2010, a year which didn't really start out terribly promising. Had some good stuff early on, but didn't really become great until about late June, early July, when I saw a couple movies that were totally awesome, and I'll get to them shortly. But I'd like to start off by talking about the Book of Eli, which is a film by Alan and Albert Hughes. They are the co-directors of Menace to Society, a film from 1993 that I thought was fantastic, and then Dead Presidents, which didn't impress me all that much. But the Book of Eli I liked quite a bit. It's based on a graphic novel. It's set in a post-apocalyptic era. Denzel Washington is the main character. He is basically walking west. He's looking for a place to unload this book that he's carrying, a book which is very important, and along the way he encounters, sort of Mad Max type characters, rovers, people who are, attacking, innocent people and stealing their water, stealing their things, and as it turns out, they're bringing them to a person named Carnegie, played by Gary Oldman, who is running a small town. It's kind of like a post-apocalyptic western, I guess you could say. There's some interesting surprises towards the end of the movie, and it made me want to see the movie a second time to just kind of watch carefully for certain clues, but there really aren't any. So that's a little unusual right there. I didn't, I think it was, if you're not familiar with the story, or if you didn't know about, what it was, I think it would be very, very tough to guess. It certainly was for me. Of course, I didn't realize that there were surprises to guess about, but, that's neither here nor there. Mila Kunis is also in this movie. She plays sort of a supporting part. Jennifer Beals plays her mother. They're sort of under the care of Carnegie, but they're also sort of scared of him because, Carnegie pretty much does what he likes in pursuit of his objective, which, as it turns out, is also to find a book which might be the book that Denzel Washington is carrying. I really enjoyed seeing Gary Oldman in this movie, especially since it had been a while since I'd seen him play a villain. He'd been playing, a good guy in Harry Potter and a good guy in Batman movies for a while, and so Gary Oldman playing a bad guy is never a bad thing, so I was very pleased by that. Also, I really liked the look of the movie itself. Next is How to Train Your Dragon, which is an animated film. I did not see the sequel to this movie. I hear it's actually quite good, but I just never got around to it. Maybe I should. What do you think? How to Train Your Dragon is a really, really exciting movie and spectacular. And it's about the main character, I think his name is Teacup. I could have that wrong. But he's a kid who basically finds a dragon who he calls Toothless and gets him trained to carry him around places. He can fly around in his back, whereas most people are scared to do that. His father, the character of his father, is voiced by Gerard Butler, and he's this real sort of hulking brute of a guy and wants his son to be a warrior, but because Teacup is very, very slight, I'm sure that's his name. It's definitely not Buttercup. It's been a while since I've seen the movie, but anyway, really good movie. Great, one of those animated movies that's very, very well written, has a great script, and just the animation is spectacular. It's really exciting. It's directed by Dean DeBlois and Chris Sanders. I'm not really familiar with their other work. They might have something to do with the sequel. I really don't know. I never saw it. The Fighter is a movie which I wasn't all that sure about. I remember when I went to see this movie, I sort of debated whether or not to spend the time and money on it. The Fighter is directed by David O. Russell, who of course did Three Kings previously, and Flirting with Disaster, two movies that I like quite a bit. But this was a boxing movie. Mark Wahlberg was the main character. His brother is played by Christian Bale. And it's based on a true story, but it just wasn't necessarily something I was super keen on. So right up until 10 minutes before the movie started, I was sitting nearby, in a restaurant nearby, going, should I actually take the time to see this movie? Should I not? I decided, fine, I'll go see it, and I'm really glad that I did, because it was really, really great. Of course, David O. Russell went on to do Silver Linings Playbook and American Hustle, and he's he's pretty much been on a roll since then. I guess it was Huckabees that gave me some pause, and plus the fact it was a sports movie, but what I've noticed that is among sports movies, boxing movies tend to be awesome. You know, the Raging Bull and $1 Million Baby, and you know, there's a bunch of really good boxing movies, so you know, The Fighter definitely falls into that group. So yeah, I'm sure that you're aware that you know, Christian Bale won the supporting actor Oscar for that movie, and he's terrific. He really is terrific. And they have this clip at the end of the movie of the real life brothers, and you know, the dynamic between them is just really funny. It's a great little add-on to the movie. Normally I don't like it when they do that, when they show footage of the real person at the end. Sort of breaks the spell, you know, but in this case it was actually really funny and really good. Now I'd like to talk about a movie called Splice. This was directed by Vincenzo Natali, and it stars Adrian Brody and Sarah Polley as a couple of geneticists who are experimenting with creating a new species by combining the DNA of different animals. They're doing this really without authorization, and at one point their experiment backfires and they lose the ability to run these experiments themselves, so they decide to do them in secret and create an alternate, a new creature, which really doesn't speak, but it has humanoid in various ways and ends up growing beyond their control. Exciting movie, really fun movie, and oftentimes a little scary and kind of funny in a bit of a sick way. I don't want to get into too much of it if you haven't seen it, but yeah, it's really good. I'm not really familiar with the director's other work. I think that he might have been in the running to direct an adaptation of Neuromancer, the William Gibson novel, but that was quite a while ago. You know, I haven't heard a lot about that since. Then there's a film that was co-directed by Glenn Ficarra and John Requa, who did Crazy Stupid Love the following year, and this is called I Love You, Philip Morris. A movie which did not get a very wide release, despite the fact that it stars Jim Carrey and Ewan McGregor, because they play a gay couple. So naturally, they couldn't get a wide release for a movie like that. It's a really funny movie. It's based on a true story. Philip Morris is the Ewan McGregor character, and he meets the Jim Carrey character, the person, in prison because Jim Carrey's character is a con man. He's always pulling scams. He's in prison for that. For fraud, I think. And the two of them fall in love and they manage to share a cell together, and then once they get out, Jim Carrey's continually trying to earn money through scams and getting thrown back in prison, at which point he figures out ways to escape. He manages to escape from prison several times over. The first part of this movie, where the two of them meet in prison and have the initial part of their romance, is like the funniest part of the movie. It's really great. Overall, it's just, you know, a really strong picture. Yeah, funny and well written, and it's really too bad that the movie only got, you know, a very small release because of the subject matter. You know, really, it's hilarious. I wanted to mention one of my viewers. His name is Drax007. He was talking about in the comment in one of my previous videos about a film called Pour Elle. I'm pronouncing that. It was probably Pour Elle, French film, I believe, which actually got a remake, which I had planned to put on this list actually before he mentioned it. So thank you very much for bringing that to my attention, because I wouldn't have known that it was a remake otherwise. The American version is called The Next 3 Days, and it was directed by Paul Haggis, who did Crash and In the Valley of Elah, and recently did Third Person. This is probably my favorite movie by him. The In the Valley of Elah is good too. I like that one a lot. This is basically about a school teacher played by Russell Crowe and his wife played by Elizabeth Banks. She is arrested for murder and convicted, despite the fact that they're quite certain that she didn't do it. I mean, that Russell Crowe's character is like, this is crazy, you know, my wife's not a murderer, blah, blah, blah. And despite the fact that they have all this evidence, he decides that the thing that he's going to do in order to get her out of this situation is to break her out of jail, which is crazy because he's not a criminal. He is not knowledgeable about these things. He is a school teacher, you know, and so there's a lot of suspense as to how he's going to prepare for this and how he's going to pull it off. Yeah, so like I said, it's a remake, so yeah, and I was planning on actually putting it on this on my recommendations for this year before I heard from Drax007, so just wanted to say thanks to him for telling me about that, because I wouldn't have known otherwise. Yeah, so he goes, the Russell Crowe character, he starts looking at YouTube videos and tutorials, and he consults with a ex-convict played by Liam Neeson, who is also in third person. And it's quite suspenseful because, this guy is just, it's not one of those things whereby, not like an Ocean's 11 movie where everyone's super cool and you have, little doubt that they're going to get away with it and, escape by the skin of their teeth or whatever. It's much less certain here. Really good suspense film. Liked it a lot. And finally, I'd like to talk about Peter and Vandy, which is a very low-budget indie movie. It's actually pretty short, too. I think it's only about 80 minutes long, but it's really good. The main characters are played by Jason Ritter and Jess Wixler, an actress who I like quite a bit. They have a romance which is told chronologically. It's all sort of, the timeline's kind of mixed up. But it's a really good, solid film, well written, and has really good acting as well. It's directed by Jay DiPietro. I'm not really familiar with his other work, but I really like the film quite a bit. Not a lot to say about it otherwise. It's just sort of relationship drama. It has its funny moments, but overall really well done picture. And it's not a movie that really saw the inside of theaters here in Chicago, but I really wanted to include it because it sort of stood out amongst some of the direct-to-video movies that I was watching. I'm sure it's played at film festivals or something like that, but not in a general release, not here in Chicago anyway. So that's 7 right there. I'll be back in the next video with another 7. I hope you'll tune in for that. Please feel free to comment with other 2010 movies if you like. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it.